Tae, before we get into Spacecoin, can you explain the problem with centralized internet, or maybe some of the failures of internet and internet connectivity today? I would love to start with like the big problem. I'm not sure most people know what the issue is.
Anything centralized can be turned off by anyone who's operating that central system. It can be internet, it can be power, it can be anything, right?
Right, they can turn the tap off.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly. So one elephant in the room that I thought that nobody really talks about is even a Bitcoin, while it's very decentralized in terms of the mining power or Ethereum, if ISPs decides to block the nodes of those decentralized, so-called decentralized network, it can be blocked out and completely go out of go out of power.
Go dark.
Yeah, go dark, and it can happen. And because of decentralization, there's no real net neutrality, which introduces censorship and all this issues happening. Especially, I recently heard that there's a couple of people getting arrested for what they post online in UK. Things like those can happen because of the centralization and the permissioned nature of the network.
Right, they can surveil and then they can isolate, locate, and then
Right.
basically go after individuals.
Right. Also, on the other side, if something gets cheap enough, if a node of a network gets cheap enough now, that means you can decentralize it. Why? Because more people can participate as a node operator. And thanks to the commoditization of the space industry, now it became feasible to decentralize telecommunications node, which is satellite in this case. And that's how we ended up thinking about this idea of Spacecoin.
Okay, so basically taking the strategic and actual high ground
Yep.
of decentralization. So Spacecoin project is a DePIN project. We need to define some terms because some of our listeners may not know what that means. What is DePIN?
I wonder who comes up
with these
all
things.
these names, right?
Thought it was you.
DeFi, DePIN. So it's short for decentralized physical infrastructure, and they call it DePIN. In this case, the infrastructure is a satellite network. We will probably have to include things like ground stations because that's how the satellite taps into the regular internet. But essentially, satellite, ground station, the telecommunication infrastructure that composes this network is the infrastructure that we're talking about.
Before we started, you were giving me a little bit of an update on the payloads that you're going to put into orbit. Now, I imagine buying space on a rocket ship isn't exactly like shopping at Amazon Prime.
Right.
So, how do you go about getting a contract in place?
Yeah.
What do you need to negotiate? And walk us through a little bit what the shopping experience is like to go put some satellites in outer space.
There are two big moving pieces when it comes to launching a satellite. You first have to have a ride provider, the launch provider, SpaceX in this case. And SpaceX now has a ride share program, which means basically it's a bus. Like a bunch of many companies are participating to get their ride filled up and get launched. So one side is the launch provider. And you have to book it about like 1 or 2 years in advance because it's not like Uber. You cannot get it on the go.
Now, in the ride share of a rocket ship, are the payloads all similarly sized, or some people putting up big, heavy things?
Right.
It's all kinds of stuff?
Yes, some people put more satellites. Some people put bigger satellites, smaller satellites. It's all different. So when those satellites are defined in as in like the size and the weight, then you have to carefully place it so that everything's balanced. So that happens about 3 to 6 months in advance the launch. So they have enough time to place all that properly and then seal it before getting things launched.
So I learned you majored in computational or
computational biology.
So computational biology. You're now a crypto founder and an astronaut, basically.
No, not an astronaut.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about Spacecoin. Talk to us a little bit about what the next maybe 30, 60, 90 days look like for you, and what does it look like if things are going well?
Our 3 satellites are going up into space, and we're gonna basically try to position it in the correct orbit and start commissioning it. Basically, pinging the satellite, making sure that everything is working as planned, if everything is staying intact, and basically preparing for the the test that we're going to conduct in early next year. We are testing 3 different key technologies. First one is handover, satellites being connected to one ground station and being gracefully handed over to the next one.
Right.
The second one is inter-satellite link, satellites talking to each other using the RF facing each other. The third one is expansion of the coverage by utilizing 3 different satellites, making sure that we can expand the coverage as we deploy more satellites into space. Those 3 we are testing, and we are basically before we actually conduct a demonstration, we are going to do internal commissioning and testing of those.
Okay, so you told me that these satellites are basically the size of essentially sort of a large microwave, solar powered. What's sort of the life cycle for one of these things? You've got 3 of them, so a little bit of redundancy, but you're really hoping all 3 work. There's a lot riding on a launch, obviously.
Yeah.
So what are your hopes and dreams for it?
These are mostly test satellites in our case. So we'll probably live for about 3 years, but they can live up to 7 years or more if you want it to be. So if you want to have a longer lifetime, then you want to put some propulsion so that it can push it back up into the orbit, because satellites slowly falling down from the sky.
Right.
That is why it's only living up there 3 years. But if you have propulsion, then you can push it back up, so it can have a lot longer lifetime. If you're a satellite operator, you want to replenish satellite with a new technology anyway.
Right.
Like buy
upgrade.
a new iPhone, right? So
I don't think people know much about this. So like we're always hearing about space junk, but how many satellites are basically coming back into the atmosphere every year and just incinerating?
I don't have that number in my head, but
We'll look it up later. Anyway.
there aren't many satellites in the space yet.
Yeah.
If you think about it, there are more rhinos on Earth than satellites up in space. So there aren't many yet.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't feel like they've got a misconception then.
Yeah.
I think they believe there's a lot more of them than there really are. Hopefully the rhino population is also doing well. Okay, so part of the goal here is to build a decentralized internet capability, but especially for connecting to what were previously unconnected audiences. Talk to us a little bit about bringing new users online for the first time, what the vision is for Spacecoin, and how does that maybe compete with either the SpaceX project or even Google's, Blimp initiative that Sergey is working on?
I think the core differentiator between us and the other space telecommunications project is the decentralized nature and the open source of the technology. So meaning that anyone can join or lead the network, and anyone can build their own version of the satellite. So we want to position ourselves not as like a service provider, but as just an open source technology and network that anyone can join, like Android or Linux or just TCP/IP. You just want to stay as a protocol. That said, we are also focusing on bringing the 2.6 billion unconnected online. Before I started business in Nigeria, I didn't know there were so many unconnected still on Earth, and because of the CapEx that it takes to deploy cable-based internet infrastructure, about half of the population on Earth are unconnected.
And they're never going to get there. I mean, the only way to do it is to basically beam it from like low Earth orbit, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason why we were able to speak with many of the large populated countries is because their governments has been promising connectivity for a decade or more, but they just couldn't.
And they've given out. Yeah, I've given up. Interesting.
Yeah. The way I understand this problem is, like, imagine yourself losing internet connection like forever. Like, what would do to your productivity, right? I'm going to be useless without my internet connection. So bringing people online will do the reverse effect of exactly what you have just imagined. So I think it will be immensely productive, not just to the people who's getting online, but for the whole humanity.
So in your white paper that I spent some time looking at, you made a point to mention a multiplanetary internet, and you felt it was important enough to include in your white paper. Is that something you foresee in the near future? I love science fiction, so give me a bit of a gaze into the future. What do you mean by that?
So I think we will end up living on Moon, Mars soon, and the terrestrial internet infrastructure is not going to connect them, right? Let's say, like similar to calling somebody on a different continent, you will have to have some way to get connected with people on different planets now. And it will be a real problem when people actually start moving to other planets.
Yeah, how long does it take to send a message to Mars right now? It's like quite a bit of time, right?
It depends on the distance.
The distance between Mars and Earth and the
also,
orbits, yeah.
Yeah, and also sun can be in between you. And in that case,
Oh, interesting. So that could cause like a really big delay, right?
Right. So you have to go around somehow. We don't have a way to do that at this point. So we will have to deploy a couple of satellites in between.
Just to relay when the sun's in the way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
But it will be needed, and it will be basically done by the satellite technology, not cable, obviously.
Right. We get the launch done. We go through the warming up period, testing all the 3 key capabilities for the satellites. Then you start to commercialize. What does that sort of look like over the next year?
So we're gonna start by commercializing backbone network, meaning that we're gonna focus on the connection between other satellites to our satellites, and we're gonna create a payload that can be plugged into other satellite operators. So
Okay.
let's say you're launching a satellite today, you're probably gonna launch like 1 or 2. You're not gonna launch a whole constellation, but because of the nature of the low Earth orbit satellite, it has to go around the globe. Meaning that you only get to talk to your satellite, let's say, like 5 minutes a day. And that's not enough time for you to download that high-resolution pictures that you have taken with your satellite. So it takes you about a week or 2. And now we don't have a real-time information. You always have to rely on the like a week or 2 old information coming from your satellite. By making you connected to our satellite, providing global connectivity, you can not only talk to your satellite 24/7, but when you're not using your capacity, you can be a real layer within the network, making money from your capacity and your real estate, basically.
Yep. Okay. So the project is called Spacecoin. Let's talk a little bit about the crypto aspect of this. Tell me how you think about, because you said one of your first startups was in Bitcoin, and you launched an exchange and have built a bunch of different things. How do you see why is it important to merge this space exploration and internet capability with some sort of token model, and what is the token model?
So any decentralized network needs the cryptocurrency to stay decentralized, right? Like you cannot rely on other people operating in good faith to maintain the decentralization. So in our case, Spacecoin is used in 2 folds. The first one is you have to stake certain amount of Spacecoin to be included in the network as a node.
Okay.
Basically, our protection against civil attacks. And the second fold is you have to pay each other in Spacecoin for data transmission. So if you want to transmit data from point A to point B, you have to pay the nodes in between in Spacecoin. So that allows you to pay each other without trusting each other or relying on a central payment provider. Some people ask sometimes, like, why are you not using stable coins like USD Tether or USD Coin? I think stable coins are great, but they can be locked, they can be turned off, they can be taken away from you. I think most people don't know about this. From time to time, people get their stablecoin account frozen, even though they are on chain. If they are, they consider connected to some illegal activities or potentially connected to illegal activities, so on and so forth. But this means that we cannot keep the network. If you're using stablecoin as a payment, we cannot keep the network as permissionless as we want it to be. So that is why stablecoin in our case is not an option.
And just because most people probably have no idea, myself included, what is the cost of renting a satellite to, take pictures around the Earth for 24 hours, and then retrieving all the data from maybe even just a research initiative? So if I was at Carnegie Mellon, a student, and I wanted to look at, deforestation issues, and I wanted to rent satellite time and then get all that back.
So you have to pay a couple of thousands of dollars per picture.
Okay, so it's quite a bit.
Yeah, pretty expensive because it's not like readily available data. So you have to find a specific satellite that's flying over the specific location that you wanted to take picture of, and then basically it's semi-monopoly, right? Depending on when you want it. So it's pretty expensive. And also the downloading data from the space is pretty expensive.
Yeah. So you can start to see what the economy of a decentralized satellite internet could sort of look like if you consider how expensive it is just to do basic things like download photos. Bitcoin has proof of work. You've got proof of stake. You've talked a little bit about proof of location. What is that? And talk to us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, it's not like the consensus mechanism that we have designed it to be. But basically, you probably know triangulation, right? So when you're using a cell phone, the telecommunications company, telcos basically can locate where you're at basically by triangulation from 3 different cell towers,
Right.
right? Imagine doing that from space, and imagine those nodes, instead of cell tower, we're using satellites, and they are decentralized. And by them being decentralized, you can create a objective data where you're located at, because no one party can control all 3 or more and get your data, meaning that it's a tamper-proof
Triangulation.
triangulation that prove you that you were in that location at that point of time.
Huh, interesting.
And also because the satellites are moving, you can add the velocity, not just location. So we came
This
up
would be very interesting for all kinds of things. I mean, imagine like
imagine something like security. So let's say we integrate your private key with a certain location, so that you're not only using your private key, but you also have to be on that location to sign certain contracts.
right.
Yeah, so it adds physical security to your digital security.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that. Well, I guess coming up to sort of the end of our chat, what do you think is the sort of biggest challenge in balancing vision and execution on a project like this? Scalability, aerospace, rockets, crypto,
Yeah.
competition from some big actors. How do you think about it?
I think the biggest challenge that I face is I have to integrate 3 different engineering groups. I have not crypto only, but telecommunications and space, and they all come from very different culture, background. I'm not used to talking to each other, and also different life cycles. So crypto, like every day we have new things going on. For telco, like every year, they basically plan everything for annually. When it comes to space, they're used to like spending 3 to 5, maybe even 10 years building just one satellite. So they all have a different culture when it comes to timeline. And I have to manage these 3 different engineering groups to align them and point them to the same direction and basically fulfill the mission. That's interesting, but also challenging.
It sounds challenging, but you can see how the diversity of engineering thought, I think, can lead to really interesting
Right.
opportunities to collaborate and build
right.
something special. We're very much rooting for Spacecoin. I don't know if there's any other parting thoughts you have around how maybe people can participate or where they should go to learn more and follow the project, especially the launch, and I would say the deployment period in 2026.
Please visit spacecoin.org. That's where all our project information is. And also you can track our satellites. Our satellite currently in space is trackable on our website. 3 more satellites we're launching soon. Hopefully by the time you're watching this, it should be in space. Will be trackable on our website too. And feel free to reach out to us to build cool things together.
Cool. All right. Well, we're rooting for Spacecoin again. Thank you very much for coming to visit us today.
Thank you, Nick.